Hello, hello. This is Alexander James Mathers putting on his best efforts at a radio voice. Anyway, very happy at the moment. I've just moved into a new place here in Tbilisi in Georgia, a new country that I'm sampling on my travels as a freelance graphic designer, illustrator, blogger, coach. And I've got to say, I'm in a kind of a bliss right now because I'm looking out over the city. I've managed to find myself a really nice place, putting a bit of money on this one, more so than the last month-long Airbnb, and I'm certainly enjoying the new environment. The last place was awful. I had cockroaches literally crawling over my face when I slept. It was very dark. It was like a prison in there, and it was extremely noisy. As much as I love the voices of children around, my goodness, it was really getting to be grating after 35 plus days at the last place. But now, at the new place, it's sort of on the side of a hill here in Georgia, and I can see the main Trinity Church. I can see the beautiful, whatever that silver statue on the hill is, monument. I can see the cable car. I can see the amazing fortress on the hill there. But enough of that. Just wanted to give you a little update, and we can now get into the story of how I managed to gain over $1 million in 2017, pretty much just within that year, and managed to lose all of that. How did it all start? So it started off, let's go back to my time in London. I had spent a lot of my 20s in London, and in 2010 I got to the point where I was able to, with the help of my dad who gave me a loan, to buy a shared ownership 50% share in a property in East London in Limehouse. I managed to get myself on the property ladder, as they all say so enthusiastically. So I bought this place, owned 50% of it, which allowed me to effectively earn whatever profit I sold on the 50% down the line. I was also entitled to do a thing called staircasing, which allowed me to buy additional shares of the property over time as I was able to through income, but I kept it at 50%. I was there until 2016 when I sold my share. I decided to sell because over the past 6 years of living in East London, I wasn't always there. I did a lot of traveling. I spent some time in Vietnam and Japan, and it wasn't always easy to legitimately, in fact, it was not easy to legitimately sublet the place out while I was gone to other people so that I wasn't losing money on the rental portion of what I had to pay on that property. Because it was a shared ownership thing, I had to pay rental as well to supplement the part that I didn't own. So I wanted to, as much as I loved living in London, it wasn't proving to be particularly suitable for someone like me who is a freelance coach. I didn't really need to be in London. It was, costs are just sky high. The city was sort of getting to me a bit, and because I was enjoying my flexibility and being able to travel and work wherever, I didn't really need to be there, and I also wanted to shake off the burden of having to not strictly be allowed to rent the place out. I think because it was a government scheme, I wasn't allowed to rent it out, and I did a little bit of that. And I was always a little bit uneasy about doing that, so I sold it. And luckily, because property prices in London had gone up, I made a tidy little profit once I had returned the loan back to my faithful father. So with that money, I decided to jet off to Vietnam again. I loved Vietnam so much in 2014 that I decided to go back again. So the intention in 2016, this is about May, June 2016, I sold the place and thought to myself, okay, I want a little bit more freedom now. I want the flexibility of being able to invest the money where I want it. I have a bit of profit now. I have a bit more freedom. So I left the UK and I gave a couple of talks at a conference in Austin and did a cross-country drive from Austin, US to LA, and then on to Bangkok, where I stayed for a couple of weeks, and then on to Vietnam. And then it was in Vietnam that I realized that actually there might be some potential to invest in property in Bangkok. I was interested in investing in real estate in Vietnam, but it was just a little bit too behind, I think, and a little bit too Wild West over there at the time for me to take Vietnam seriously at that time. Maybe now it's a bit better, but I actually decided to fly back to Bangkok after a couple of weeks in Vietnam, which was fun, to look into potential other investments that I could put my spare money into. And the intention initially was to buy one or two or even multiple apartments, taking advantage of the lower cost Thai prices, although they weren't much lower, although considerably lower than London prices. So I got myself shacked up in Bangkok and lived there in a nice little place overlooking the incredible metropolis of modern day Bangkok. It didn't take long for me to realize that investing in Thai property and apartments was probably going to be short-lived. I had a similar bad feeling about investing in that part of the world, just too much shady stuff going on effectively without going into too much detail. So I decided pretty quickly that I wouldn't be investing for the time being in Bangkok apartments. I'd heard of too many horror stories and Thais swindling foreigners, which happens a lot. Not to say that the Thais are not good people, it's just that there are many scams and things about, especially in Thailand, where you can't speak the language and it's very easy to get the wrong end of the stick. So I decided against real estate, and I had with me that chunk of money that I'd made off the apartment sale in London and started to take more of an interest in cryptocurrencies, those mediums of exchange on the blockchain. And if you want to learn more about blockchain and cryptos, this is not the place for that. I would suggest you start perhaps reading The Blockchain Revolution by the Tapscott brothers, or go and search on YouTube for information on how blockchain works. But I started taking an interest in cryptocurrencies actually about 2 years before I got to Bangkok. Bitcoin came on my radar perhaps in 2014. I bought maybe £100 worth of Bitcoin when it was about $400, I think, in 2014, and then I left it for a couple of years, and I started through mainly watching YouTube videos of more libertarian slanting channels and cryptocurrency channels. People like Vention, Dollar Vigilante, Cryptos News, Bix Weir, Cliff High, people like that, JSNIP4. I was following these guys on YouTube and learning very rapidly about the amazing potential that cryptos were going to be bringing to the world, and how the dollar was soon to collapse and fiat monetary system was facing total crisis and still is as I speak now. But there was a lot of interesting chat around why investing in cryptos was a very good idea, and in preparing for a new, very different future in terms of monetary exchange. But also, of course, cryptos are very powerful in many other forms of exchange of information and all of the uses that come out of that. Again, you're going to have to learn about blockchain and cryptos in a separate area. So as I was living in Bangkok and hearing all this good stuff about cryptocurrencies, I started to invest that money that I had. I didn't invest particularly much at first. I remember adding maybe £400 here, £500 there, maybe something like a rate of, I was investing maybe £500 every month for a few months in the latter half of 2016. And as more and more information came out about the huge benefits of cryptos, and I learned more and more about the technology and more good things, mainly to do with how bad things were going to get in the sort of mainstream, and a lot of libertarian types talking about the end of the fiat system and how governments were swindling everyone, and you want to have control over your money and your finances and all that stuff. So crypto seemed like a very good investment, and it looked as if with increasing prices as they were, it was a good place to be. Now, over time, I saw the successes of me gaining money with my smaller crypto investments, and there's something quite alluring about the sensation one gets when you see your money expanding, especially as a young lad or a young man like me. I'm 34 now, but I was getting into it sort of 32, and I've never really had much money in my life. So seeing my investments gain in size so rapidly, even in 2016, was quite a tasty thing for me. So I kept investing more and more of what I had, mainly in Bitcoin, but I was also investing here and there in other ones for a bit of diversification and speculation, and testing some of the waters in other altcoins like ETH. But most of my money still went into Bitcoin. I wouldn't be able to tell you all the prices at how they were looking when I was investing, but yeah, I invested a lot of money through 2016 and then into 2017. I remember in early 2017, I think late 2016, Bitcoin took a bit of a nosedive, and there was a lot of confidence that was drained out of the potential that Bitcoin was going to bring to the world. And I think there was a lot of loss of faith in the people who were connected to Bitcoin. And I was listening to a guy who sold off a lot of his Bitcoin, who I had a lot of trust in. So I ended up dumping a lot of my Bitcoin in early 2017, and I had money that I just had sold off from that. So I put a lot of that into ETH, because I was hearing very good things about ETH through crypto news. I think his name is just Crypto. It's Crypto with a zero, not an O. So he'd been talking a lot about how good ETH was. So I invested a lot of money into ETH in early 2017, which turned out to be a brilliant move because, for example, ETH price was around $8 in September of 2016. And I had bought a few of those, maybe like 50 ETHs at that point. And then I bought, 5 or 6 or 700 more ETHs in early 2017 at the price of about $12 to $15. And through early 2017, they went all the way up to like $300, $400, I think it was. So my investments really expanded nicely in 2017. And with all that extra high value ETH I had, I started taking interest in some of the other alternative cryptos and the more speculative shit coins and altcoins that existed out in the ether, so to speak. And there were so many new launches of new coins, ICOs I think they call them, initial coin offerings, and you would often pay for new batches of coins as they were being released for very low prices with your ETH. And I had a lot of ETH and a lot of high value ETH, so I bought up a lot of alternative coins with the rationale behind it being that minimum downside, massive upside. So if I lost out, if some of those coins just faded into nothing and just collapsed, I wouldn't lose much because the investment was quite small for thousands of these tiny little coins. But if they were to succeed and they were to expand in the same way that Bitcoin had and the same way that ETH and Litecoin had, I would have stood to gain a ton. So coins that I invested in, I can't even remember now, but things like Pillar, Theta Coin, I can't even remember half of them, but just a ton of alternative coins. So by this time, sort of mid-2017, I had a nice diversified portfolio of mostly Bitcoin, mostly Ethereum still. I think about 80% of my money was in those two, and probably another 20% in Litecoin, and then the rest was split into all kinds of other coins, Ripple and Monero and, I can't remember, but all those other ones. As 2017 went on, the crypto fever just grew and grew and grew, and the prices just swelled and swelled in all coins. There didn't seem to be any coins that were suffering through 2017, and there was this real sense of a rush, a gold rush, and how amazing it was to be getting into these coins and how important it was to prepare for a dangerous future in the fiat world and protecting yourself in the crypto world. And it seemed like a brilliant place to be, and it was a brilliant place to be. My investments were really expanding, especially through the Ethereum, which just continued to just blast off. It was fantastic. And this continued up and down, but on an upward trajectory throughout all of 2017. I got my dad into it. I got friends into it. I got very communicative with all my other friends and said, look, if you haven't heard of Bitcoin and cryptos, you're gonna want to get on this, because this boat has already sailed by the looks of things, and things are looking really damn hot here. So get on that rocket ship, people. Yeah, Litecoin to the moon, ETH to the moon, Bitcoin to the moon, to the stars, man. It was looking fantastic. It was fantastic. I was already planning retirement. I was planning a lot of travel. I was planning buying all these houses around the world, because I was actually getting close to really making some proper wealth at that relatively young age. So 2017, November, December is when things really blasted off even more. So despite all that amazing growth in 2017, that wasn't even close to what we were to see towards the end of that year. And things really took off. I think as people started doing what I was doing, which was telling friends and family about how amazing cryptos were and how you should invest, and I think a lot of my friends were investing based on my word, things really took off towards the end of 2017. And I think Ethereum got to, highest point was $1,200. So this is up from $8 per Ethereum coin, and Bitcoin got up to about 19,800 per coin. This is up from when I first invested in Bitcoin at $400 each. So you get the sense of how big the growth was. You might be wondering at this point whether I invested all of my spare money into cryptos. I would say about 85% I put in. Probably, that's just way too much for a speculative investment like cryptocurrencies, despite how positive things were around them. I understood that even at the time, but the gradual nature of their growth and just continually seeing great results over the months and not seeing much downside was just too attractive. So I put in most of my money. Most of my savings were, yes, indeed, in cryptos. I had a little bit of money just in cash, and I had extra money in silver coins, believe it or not, thanks to people like Bix Weir and JSNIP4 telling me about the importance of silver. Still yet to be seen. Prices haven't really changed on silver. But most of my money was indeed in cryptos by the end of 2017. So when I saw Bitcoin at nearly $20,000 and I saw Ethereum at nearly $1,300, I think it was even $1,400 at one point, and I looked at my portfolio and I looked across all my other coins that were also doing well, and I tallied up the numbers day after day, and I saw the prices rising. Man, I'd made it. I had hit well over $1 million in investment increases over merely a year, which is just unheard of for such a small investment of $80,000 initially. I was over the moon, as you can imagine. Unfortunately, that was to be the last $1 million plus gain I would be seeing for a while, as I shall explain next. By the beginning of 2018, prices were starting to drop quite considerably. The flavor around cryptocurrencies started to fade rather quickly. My dad was by then invested in it. My friends were invested in it. Things just didn't continue on as people had predicted. Now, there were two reasons why I decided to just keep everything that I had in cryptos at that point. One reason being that I had a sellout point in my mind, a stop loss effectively of double what I had initially invested in cryptos. And so if the money dropped to that point, then I would sell off just enough to reap back in the money that would double the initial investment. So I didn't have too much worry in that regard. I would still have gained a lot of money. And secondly is that so many pundits and so many predictors, people like Cliff High and lots of other traders who I had been following on YouTube, had predicted unbelievable, even bigger exponential growth in 2018 for cryptos. There was just a lot of positivity around how much growth there would be for cryptos in that year, just based on it being a new industry and people now starting to reach a new tier of awareness. Like, more of the world's population was expected to become aware of this amazing new technology. So everyone was predicting that cryptos would multiply even more in value over 2018. So I kept my money in. I was still telling people to just stay put and not to worry. And over 2018, prices just sort of went down and down and down. It wasn't a huge drop, but it was like a sort of gradual, painful, slow pulling of the teeth type draining of value of all the coins. And this continued through January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and it got really low in sort of September, and I decided, all right, I've hit the point where I need to sell off. Sadly, just all that golden age anticipation that was supposed to happen around for 2018 was gone, and there was just a sort of malaise around cryptos, and I didn't even want to read about cryptos anymore. All my fascination and passion for cryptocurrencies had gone. The blockchain was not interesting to me anymore. I sold up a good chunk of my cryptos to get back twice of the initial investment that I put in. So effectively, no loss. I had made a decent chunk of money on my initial investment, so I was happy with that, and I had no more of the angst associated with plummeting crypto prices, and I came out in a good position. I still own several cryptocurrencies. The outcome of 2018 was nowhere near as good as I hoped it was going to be, but things are now starting to pick up. I still have that long-term hope and interest in cryptocurrency's potential. I still think cryptos, as they were being initially talked about a couple of years back when there was that big rush to buy them, I think everything that people were talking about in terms of their value and in terms of them changing the world and being a brilliant alternative currency and means of exchange and means of information exchange is still all very valid. And I still think that people need to take the long-term view. And I think I probably was a little bit too hasty to sell up even back in September 2018. In retrospect, I should have just kept all the money in cryptos. I know that probably goes against any investment advice, but I'm still young. I've got, pretty much everything to lose, really. That's another reason behind my rationale for just throwing it all into cryptos. I still have a lot of belief in the cryptocurrency technology. I still think prices are generally going to go up throughout the cryptocurrency space, especially in the front runners of the multiple horse race that we're seeing with Bitcoin and Litecoin and Monero and Ethereum. So lots of positives for the cryptocurrency verse. So that's my story of gaining $1 million, over $1 million, over the span of pretty much 1 year, and then losing it all over the span of the next year. So plenty of lessons learned. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose if you're certainly going to invest in a speculative investment like the cryptocurrencies. But I still have a lot of faith in future growth over the long term of many of the coins. Obviously, a lot of the coins are going to drop off and just not have any use and collapse, and companies will fail. So you have to be careful, have fun with it. I would encourage people to invest a little bit of what they have in cryptos. I think there's a lot of future there. I think it's really the future in so many aspects of society, be it healthcare and exchange of money, getting rid of stupid, smelly old paper money and all that kind of stuff. There's so many good uses that you can read about why these cryptos are going to be not only great investments, but also just useful in everyday life, really, really useful. That's really the main lesson. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. There isn't really much more to it than that. Just wanted to sort of share my story with you guys and make sure that you be careful about putting it all in. And this was a great foray into the roller coaster experience of gaining a lot of money and feeling extremely rich at one point and then seeing it all disappear before your own eyes. So if you want to avoid that experience, I would suggest putting in only the maximum of what you can afford psychologically to lose. There's a lot more I can talk about Bitcoins and cryptos and go into a lot more detail in each coin if you guys are interested and you want to hear more about the whole process and technicalities and, I don't know, just facts and fun figures about the crypto world. Let me know in the comments. This, I think, is going to be a very good investment for those of you who are a little bit unconventional in your approach and you do not trust the mainstream and you do not trust governments to meddle and you want to keep separate, you want to keep your finances and your data and all kinds of things out of the public realm and the realm that can be interfered with from other entities that you do not want to be touched by. So cryptos is a very interesting area to sort of keep an eye on, at least. As I say, I have cryptos in my possession, so I'm still on board and I haven't lost any money. I have experienced the gaining of a lot of money, and I'll probably look back on this period in many years' time and just laugh at how silly I was, or perhaps just maybe it was a good thing, and I suppose it was, to experience that very rapid gain in wealth and very rapid loss to really humble me and to slap me on the wrist in terms of being careful with my money and being very, very careful with particularly speculative, unknown investments, and to be very wary of those pundits and people around the web who seem extremely positive and adamant about their predictions and knowing how things are going to go. Nobody knows how things are going to turn out. There's just no magic 8 ball. There's no fortune that is written in the stars that people know with 100% is going to be the way things are going to be. So be careful with your money, guys. Do subscribe, like, all that good stuff. If you want to hear more about investing and building your own wealth and developing a coaching business for men as a man who cares about your finances and your wealth, listen in, subscribe, and I look forward to chatting with you guys in the next one.